Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it. Then let's evaluate together. The chandelier light glinted off the crystal flutes of champagne, casting a golden glow over the ballroom at the Plaza in Manhattan. It was the kind of night New York lived for. Black ties, designer gowns, and the hum of power deals disguised as small talk. Ethan Carter stood at the edge of the crowd, his tailored tuxedo hugging his broad shoulders, a faint smile playing on his lips as he scanned the room. At 32, he was the poster boy for the American dream. A tech billionaire who'd coded his first app at 13, sold his first startup before college graduation, and now ran Carter Innovations, a company valued at $30 billion and climbing. Tonight they were honoring him for a clean water initiative, another feather in his cap. But as he adjusted his cufflinks, a familiar emptiness gnawed at him, the kind no award could fill. Then he saw her. Across the room, under the soft glow of a sconce, stood Maya Thompson. She wore a sleek black dress that hugged her curves, her natural curls framing her face like a crown. Her warm brown eyes sparkled with the same intensity that had stolen his breath 10 years ago at MIT. Ethan froze, his scotch glass halfway to his lips. The noise of the gala faded, the clinking glasses, the murmurs of hedge fund managers, the jazz quartet in the corner. All he could hear was the thud of his own heartbeat. Maya was here. Not a memory, not a dream, but flesh and blood, laughing softly with an older man Ethan vaguely recognized as the head of a green energy nonprofit. 10 years dissolved in a single glance. He was 20 again, bleary-eyed in a computer lab, surrounded by empty Red Bull cans, when Maya walked in, an architecture student looking for a quiet place to sketch. "Mind if I steal a corner?" she'd asked, her Brooklyn accent warm like a summer night. He'd joked about his coding meltdowns, and her laugh, bright, unguarded, had been like music. They'd talked until dawn, the sun rising over Cambridge, and something deeper than code or blueprints had sparked between them. For 2 years, they were unstoppable. Ethan dreaming of tech empires, Maya sketching sustainable homes for forgotten communities. She'd challenged him, seen through his ambition to the kid who just wanted to make his dad proud. "You're building apps to connect people," she'd said once, her fingers tracing his palm. "But when's the last time you connected with someone for real?" No one had ever cut through him like that. But life had other plans. His startup got venture capital. Maya got a fellowship in Kenya. His father, Richard Carter, a self-made real estate mogul, laid down the law over a tense family dinner. "Carter men don't chase women across continents. You've got a legacy to build." Ethan had faltered, told Maya long distance wouldn't work, and watched the hurt flash in her eyes. "You'll figure out someday," she'd said, her voice steady but broken. "That all the success in the world means nothing if you're too scared to live true." She left for Nairobi the next day, and Ethan buried himself in work, building an empire to drown out the silence she left behind. Now here she was, 10 years later, and the sight of her cracked open something he'd locked away. The presenter called his name, snapping him back to the present. Ethan strode to the podium, accepting the award with a speech he barely remembered delivering. His eyes kept drifting to Maya in the crowd, her expression unreadable, but piercing. When the applause died down, he moved toward her like gravity had taken over. "Maya Thompson," he said, his voice rougher than he intended. She turned, her smile both familiar and new, like a song he hadn't heard in years but still knew every note. "Ethan Carter," she said, her Brooklyn lilt unchanged. "Congrats on the award. And the engagement. Saw it in the post." The words hit like a punch. His engagement to Isabelle Harper, the polished daughter of a banking dynasty, had been splashed across society pages 6 months ago. Power couple alert. Isabelle was everything his world expected, elegant, connected, a master of the social chess game. She fit seamlessly into the life he'd built, the one his parents approved of, the one that made sense on paper. But standing here, inches from Maya, that life felt like a suit tailored for someone else. "Thanks," he said, forcing a smile. "It's been a wild ride." He gestured vaguely, hating how hollow he sounded. "You're back in New York?" "For now," she said, tucking a curl behind her ear. The silver earrings she wore caught the light. His earrings, the ones he'd given her for her 21st birthday. His chest tightened. "I'm heading sustainable development for the Global Impact Fund. Been out of the country mostly, but I'll be here at least a year. Maybe longer." Their hands brushed as she handed him her business card, a simple, professional gesture that felt like a spark igniting dry tinder. Her skin was warm, her fingers steady, and for a split second, neither of them pulled away. Ethan's pulse raced. One look, one touch, and the carefully constructed world he'd built began to crumble. He knew it then, with a clarity that scared him. He'd never stopped loving her. Not for a single day in 10 years. "Ethan, darling!" Isabelle's voice cut through the moment like a blade. She glided toward them, her blonde hair swept into an elegant updo, her emerald gown shimmering. She slid her arm through Ethan's, her smile perfect but proprietary. "I was looking for you." "The mayor wants a word." Ethan swallowed, his throat dry. "Isabelle, this is Maya Thompson. We went to MIT together." Maya extended a hand, her expression neutral, but her eyes sharp, sizing Isabelle up. "Pleasure to meet you," she said, her tone polite but cool. "Likewise," Isabelle replied, her grip on Ethan's arm tightening ever so slightly. "MIT must have been quite the adventure. Ethan doesn't talk much about those days." "It was a lifetime ago," Maya said, her smile tight. "I should get back to my table. Congrats again, Ethan." She turned to leave, and Ethan felt a pang, like a door slamming shut. "Maya, wait," he started, but she was already weaving through the crowd, her silhouette fading into the sea of tuxedos and gowns. Isabelle tilted her head, studying him. "Old friend?" she asked, her voice light but probing. "Yeah," Ethan said, his eyes still on the spot where Maya had disappeared. "Just an old friend." But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. Maya wasn't just anything. She was the one truth he'd been running from for a decade. Back at his penthouse, Ethan stood on the balcony, the Manhattan skyline glittering below like a constellation of ambition. His apartment was a masterpiece of modern design, floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek furniture, a Warhol on the wall, but it felt more like a museum than a home. He swirled the scotch in his glass, Maya's business card burning a hole in his pocket. The city stretched out before him, a kingdom he'd conquered, but tonight it felt like a cage. His life ran like the algorithms he'd built, precise, efficient, predictable. Board meetings at 8 a.m., investor calls at noon, charity galas by night. His assistant, Lila Morales, scheduled his days down to the minute. "You've got a 15-minute window to call your mom," she'd say, barely looking up from her tablet, her dark ponytail swinging as she juggled his chaos. Lila was a godsend, a 28-year-old firecracker from the Bronx who kept his empire humming and wasn't afraid to call him out. "Man, you look like you need a vacation, or a life," she'd teased last week. Ethan's phone buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. A text from Isabelle. "Great night, darling. Dress fitting tomorrow, so I'll meet you at the gala late. Sleep well." He stared at the message, feeling nothing. Isabelle was perfect, smart, poised, raised in the same world of wealth and expectation he now inhabited. They'd met at a fundraiser for the city ballet, where she'd approached him with a glass of champagne and a pitch for arts education. By their third date, their photo had hit the society pages. New York's next power couple. His parents were thrilled. "Finally settling down," his father had said, clapping his shoulder with rare approval. His mother had cried happy tears at their engagement party, calling Isabelle suitable. The ring on Isabelle's finger was a 5-carat diamond, flawless, worth more than his first condo. Their wedding was set for the St. Regis, 300 guests, save the dates already out. Society columnists were calling it the event of the season. Ethan had nodded along to floral arrangements and menu tastings, telling himself this was what success looked like. This was the life he'd worked for. This made sense, until tonight. He pulled Maya's card from his pocket, running his thumb over her name. Maya Thompson, Director of Sustainable Development, Global Impact Fund. Her handwriting was on the back. A quick note. Let's catch up. Coffee? Simple words, but they carried the weight of a decade. He closed his eyes, picturing her at MIT, sketching in the lab, her laughter filling the air. She'd dreamed of building eco-friendly communities, not for fame, but for impact. Tech should serve people, not just profits, she'd said, her voice fierce. He'd started imagining his work supporting hers, a future where success meant more than his father's approval. But he'd let fear win, let her go, and spent 10 years chasing a version of himself he didn't even like. His phone buzzed again. Lila, this time. Reminder. Breakfast meeting with the board. 7 a.m. Don't oversleep, boss. He sighed, slipping the card back into his pocket. Sleep wasn't coming tonight, not with Maya back in his world. Her presence like a melody he couldn't shake. The next morning, Ethan sat in his office, a glass-walled fortress on the 50th floor of a midtown skyscraper. Lila bustled in, her energy cutting through the haze of his sleepless night. Rough night? She asked, setting a coffee on his desk. You look like you got hit by a truck. Something like that, Ethan muttered, rubbing his temples. Lila raised an eyebrow, her Bronx accent sharp. Spill, Carter. Was it the gala? Or Miss Perfect giving you grief? Ethan chuckled despite himself. Neither. Just ran into someone from college. Uh-huh, Lila said, crossing her arms. Someone who's got you staring into space like you're in a rom-com. Who is she? He hesitated, then slid Maya's card across the desk. Lila picked it up, whistling low. Maya Thompson, huh? Fancy title. She the one who's got you all moody? She's just an old friend, Ethan said, but his voice lacked conviction. Lila smirked. Sure, boss. Keep telling yourself that. But I saw that look last night when you were talking to her. You were like, gone. Ethan didn't respond, his mind replaying the moment their hands touched. Lila was right. He was gone. And the scariest part? He didn't want to come back. He spent the day in meetings, but his focus was shot. By noon, he was Googling Maya's name, scrolling through articles about her work. She'd built eco-communities in Rwanda, designed award-winning housing in Malaysia. Her projects weren't just buildings. They were lifelines for people the world forgot. There was a photo of her at a site in Kenya, her hair tied back, her smile radiant as she handed a kid a soccer ball. She was still the woman who'd made him want to be better, who'd seen the dreamer beneath the ambition. That night, alone in his penthouse, Ethan held Maya's card again. His thumb hovered over her number. Calling her would be professional, right? Carter Innovations could partner with her fund. It made business sense, but deep down, he knew it wasn't about business. It was about the part of himself he'd buried, the part that came alive when she was near. He set the phone down, his gaze drifting to the skyline. He'd built an empire, conquered a city, but what did it mean if he couldn't conquer his own heart? Maya was back, and nothing would ever be the same. The question was, did he have the guts to do something about it? What would you do if the one person who saw the real you walked back into your life? Would you risk the perfect life you've built to chase a love that feels true? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit that subscribe button to follow Ethan and Maya's story. Trust me, things are about to get wild. Ethan Carter leaned against the glass wall of his midtown office, staring at the Manhattan skyline as the late afternoon sun painted it gold. His phone sat on the desk behind him, Maya Thompson's business card propped beside it like a challenge. 3 days had passed since the gala at the plaza. 3 days since her smile had cracked open a decade's worth of buried feelings. He'd spent those days in a haze, half listening to board meetings, nodding through investor calls, all while her voice echoed in his head. "Congrats on the award and the engagement." The words had been polite, but her eyes, those warm, perceptive eyes, had said something else, something that kept him up at night, pacing his penthouse, wondering if he was crazy to feel this alive again. "Yo, boss, you planning to stand there all day or actually do some work?" Lila Morales' voice snapped him back to reality. His assistant strode into the office, her dark ponytail bouncing, a stack of reports in one hand and a coffee in the other. At 28, Lila was a whirlwind of efficiency, her Bronx wit cutting through the corporate polish of Carter innovations like a breath of fresh air. Ethan turned, forcing a grin. "Just taking in the view." "Uh-huh," Lila said, setting the coffee on his desk. "That view got a name? Starts with an M, maybe?" She smirked, nodding at Maya's card. "You've been staring at that thing like it's going to sprout wings and fly away." Ethan chuckled, but his ears felt hot. "It's just business, Lila. Her fund's doing sustainable development. Could be a good partnership for us." "Sure business," Lila said, air quoting the word. "That's why you look like a kid who just saw his crush at the school dance. Call her already, man. You're killing me with this mopey vibe." He didn't answer, but Lila's words stuck. By noon, he'd caved, dialing Maya's number with a mix of nerves and adrenaline. Her voicemail picked up. "This is Maya Thompson. Leave a message and I'll get back to you when I'm not buried in blueprints." Her Brooklyn accent was like a time machine, pulling him back to MIT, to late nights in the lab when her laughter was the only thing keeping him sane. He left a message, keeping it professional. "Hey, Maya, it's Ethan Carter. Thought we could grab coffee, talk about a potential collaboration. Let me know what works." She texted back an hour later. "Coffee sounds great. How's tomorrow, 2 p.m., at the Bean in Brooklyn?" The Bean was a cozy spot in Williamsburg, far from the polished Manhattan cafes he usually frequented. It was Maya's turf, and the thought made him smile. He typed back, "Perfect. See you there." The Bean smelled like roasted coffee and fresh pastries, its brick walls lined with local art and mismatched bookshelves. A jazz playlist hummed through the speakers, mingling with the chatter of freelancers tapping away on laptops. Ethan arrived early, feeling out of place in his tailored blazer among the denim and flannel crowd. He claimed a corner table, his knee bouncing under the scratched wood surface. What was he doing? This was just coffee, a business meeting, but the way his pulse raced said otherwise. Maya walked in at exactly 2 p.m., and Ethan's breath caught. She wore a navy sweater that hugged her frame, her curls loose and glowing under the cafe's soft lights. A pair of silver earrings, his earrings, glinted at her ears, a quiet reminder of the past. She spotted him and smiled, weaving through the tables with a confidence that made the room feel brighter. "Hey, stranger," she said, sliding into the chair across from him. Her voice was warm, teasing, but her eyes held a cautious edge. "Didn't expect to see you in Brooklyn. Thought you were all about those midtown skyscrapers." Ethan grinned, relaxing a fraction. "Gotta step out of the bubble sometimes. Besides, I hear this place has the best cold brew in the city." "Solid choice," Maya said, flagging down a barista. "But you're still a black coffee guy, right? No fancy lattes for Ethan Carter?" "You know me too well," he said, and for a moment it felt like no time had passed. They ordered black coffee for him, an oat milk latte for her, and fell into easy conversation. She told him about her work with the Global Impact Fund, her passion for sustainable communities lighting up her face. "We're building housing in underserved areas," she said, leaning forward, her hands animated. "Not just shelters, real homes with solar panels, community gardens, spaces where people can thrive." Ethan listened, captivated. Her vision wasn't about headlines or profits. It was about people. "That's incredible," he said. "Carter Innovations could get behind that. We've got resources, tech, funding. Maybe we could partner up." Maya raised an eyebrow, a playful smirk tugging at her lips. "You sure this isn't just an excuse to hang out with me?" His laugh came out louder than he meant, drawing a few glances. "Can't it be both?" Her smirk softened into something warmer, and Ethan felt the air shift. They weren't just talking business anymore. The conversation drifted to old memories, MIT, the time they snuck into a lecture hall at 2 a.m. to test his coding project, the way she'd doodle skyscrapers on his notebooks. "You were always dreaming big," she said, stirring her latte. "Guess you made it happen." "Not all of it," Ethan said, his voice quieter now. Their eyes locked, and for a second, the weight of 10 years hung between them. The choices, the regrets, the what-ifs. The barista broke the moment, dropping off a plate of cookies they hadn't ordered. "On the house," she said with a wink. Maya laughed, the sound like a melody, and Ethan knew he was in trouble. This wasn't just coffee. This was a spark reigniting. One coffee turned into weekly meetings. They'd meet at the Bean or Maya's office in Dumbo, a loft space cluttered with blueprints and plants. Ethan told himself it was professional, scoping out a partnership, aligning their missions. But every time he saw her, the lie got harder to sell. It was the way she tucked a curl behind her ear when she was deep in thought, the way her laugh made his chest ache, the way she still wore those damn earrings. They were a tether to the past, a reminder of the boy he'd been before ambition swallowed him whole. One afternoon, as they walked along the Brooklyn waterfront, the East River glittering under a cloudy sky, Maya opened up about her years abroad. "Rwanda was tough," she said, her voice steady but heavy. "I poured everything into a school there, designed it, raised the funds, even helped lay the foundation. Then local politics got in the way. They tore it down for a land deal." She paused, staring at the water. "I cried for weeks. Felt like I'd failed those kids." Ethan's heart twisted. "You didn't fail," he said. "You built something real, even if it didn't last. That's more than most people can say." She glanced at him, her eyes searching. "What about you, Ethan? You've got the penthouse, the headlines. You happy with the empire you've built?" The question hit like a dart. No one had asked him that in years, not his parents, not Isabelle, not even himself. "I thought I was," he said, his voice low. "But lately, I don't know. It feels like I'm living someone else's life." Maya didn't push, just nodded, her silence more understanding than any words. They stood there, the city humming around them, and Ethan felt something shift inside him. For the first time in years, he wasn't performing. He was just him. The real trouble came a week later, during a late-night work session at Maya's office. They were reviewing plans for a potential joint project, a tech-powered eco-village in upstate New York. The loft was quiet, the rest of her team gone home, leaving just the two of them under the glow of a desk lamp. Blueprints were spread across the table, Maya's sketches mingling with Ethan's data projections. She leaned over, pointing at a design flaw, her arm brushing his. Neither of them moved. "This section needs more green space," she said, her voice soft but focused. "People need places to connect, not just live." Ethan nodded, but his eyes weren't on the blueprint. They were on her. Her lips, the curve of her neck, the way her sweater slipped slightly off one shoulder, revealing a sliver of warm brown skin. You're right, he said, his voice rough. Always were. She looked up, catching his gaze, and the air thickened. The lamp cast shadows across her face, highlighting the intensity in her eyes. They were close now, too close, her breath warm against his cheek. The scent of her, vanilla and something earthier, filled his senses, pulling him under. His hand moved, almost on its own, brushing against hers. Her fingers curled slightly, not pulling away, and Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. "Maya," he whispered, the word a plea and a question. She didn't speak, but her eyes answered, a mix of want and warning. They leaned in, drawn by a force neither could fight, their lips inches apart. He could feel her breath, taste the anticipation, and for a moment, the world was just them, two people who'd lost each other and found their way back. Then she pulled back, her hand pressing against his chest. "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "You're engaged." The word was a bucket of ice water. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair, his face burning. "I know," he said, his voice hoarse. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" "It's okay," she said, but her eyes were guarded now, the warmth shuttered. "We got caught up. It happens. But we can't do this." He nodded, his throat tight. "Yeah, you're right." They packed up in silence, the blueprints forgotten. As she walked him to the door, she touched his arm, a brief grounding gesture. "We're good, Ethan," she said, forcing a smile. "Let's just keep it professional, okay?" "Okay," he said. But as he stepped into the cool Brooklyn night, he knew professional was the last thing he wanted. Back in his penthouse, Ethan stood at the bar, pouring a scotch he didn't drink. Isabelle's engagement ring sat on the counter, a glittering reminder of the life he was supposed to want. She was away for the weekend, at her family's Hamptons estate, leaving him alone with his thoughts. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos from the gala. There was one of him and Isabelle, all smiles for the cameras. Then in the background, a blurry figure, Maya, her dress catching the light, her presence pulling focus even in a crowd. His phone buzzed. A text from Lila. "Board's asking about the eco-village pitch. You still in?" He typed back, "All in." But it wasn't the project he was thinking about. It was Maya, her laugh, her fire, the way she made him feel like the man he'd forgotten how to be. He set the phone down, his gaze drifting to the skyline. The city sparkled, a testament to everything he'd achieved. But tonight, it wasn't enough. Maya was out there, in a Brooklyn loft or a Williamsburg cafe, living a life that mattered, and he wanted to be part of it, even if it meant risking everything. The rain came down in sheets, turning Manhattan into a blur of neon and wet asphalt. Ethan Carter stood in his penthouse kitchen, the city's skyline muted beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. He was supposed to be at a charity auction with Isabelle, but she'd texted earlier, saying her dress fitting ran late and she'd meet him there. Instead, he was here, alone, his thoughts spiraling back to Maya Thompson. The almost kiss in her Dumbo office 3 nights ago had left him raw like a wire stripped bare. Her voice, "You're engaged," echoed in his head, a reminder of the line they hadn't crossed, but desperately wanted to. His phone buzzed on the counter, pulling him from the fog. A text from Maya. "Hey, my apartment's flooded. Burst pipe. Any chance I can crash at your place till it's fixed?" Ethan's pulse kicked up. He pictured her in her Brooklyn walk-up, probably cursing as water soaked her blueprints. Without hesitation, he typed back, "Of course, guest room's yours. I'll send a car." Her reply came fast. "Thanks, Ethan. You're a lifesaver." An hour later, Maya arrived at his building, her curls damp and clinging to her cheeks, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. She wore a soaked hoodie and jeans, but even drenched, She carried herself with a grace that made Ethan's chest ache. "This is your place?" she said, stepping into the penthouse, her eyes widening at the sleek marble floors and the Warhol on the wall. "Man, I knew you were big time, but this is next level." Ethan chuckled, taking her bag. "It's just a place to sleep. You want a tour, or you good with a towel and some dry clothes?" "Towel first," she said, grinning. "I'm dripping all over your fancy floor." He led her to the guest suite, handing her a stack of towels and one of his old MIT sweatshirts. "This should fit," he said, trying not to linger on how she'd look in it. "I'll throw something together for dinner. You still into pasta?" "You remember that?" she asked, her voice softening. "I remember a lot," he said, meeting her eyes for a beat too long before heading to the kitchen. Cooking was a distraction, something to keep his hands busy and his mind off the fact that Maya was here, in his space, her presence filling the penthouse with a warmth it had never had. He boiled water for spaghetti, chopped garlic, and tossed together a simple marinara, the kind they used to make in his tiny dorm kitchen. The memory hit hard. Nights when they'd burn the sauce but laugh through it, her teasing him about his knife skills, him stealing kisses between stirs. Maya emerged from the guest room, the MIT sweatshirt loose on her frame, her curls tied into a messy bun. She leaned against the counter, watching him work. "Smells like college," she said, her smile nostalgic. "You're still terrible at chopping, though." "Some things never change," he shot back, but his grin faded as their eyes locked. The air felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. They ate at the kitchen island, the rain drumming against the windows. Conversation flowed easily. Her latest project, his clean water initiative, the absurdities of New York life. But beneath the banter, a current ran strong, pulling them toward dangerous territory. After dinner, they moved to the living room, settling on the plush sectional by the fireplace. Ethan lit the gas flames, more for ambiance than warmth, and poured them each a glass of red wine. "Fancy," Maya teased, swirling her glass. "You always keep wine this good on hand?" "Only for special occasions," he said, his voice low. Her smile faltered, and he knew she felt it too, the weight of being here, alone, with 10 years of history pressing in. She set her glass down, her expression turning serious. "Ethan, we need to talk about the other night." He nodded, his throat tight. "I know. I crossed a line. I'm sorry." "It wasn't just you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was there too. I wanted it as much as you did." She looked away, her fingers tracing the edge of the couch. "But you're with Isabelle, and I'm not that person. I won't be the reason you break a promise." "I get it," he said. But the words felt hollow. He wanted to tell her the truth, that his engagement to Isabelle felt like a contract, not a vow, that every moment with Maya made him question the life he'd built. But he didn't. Instead, he said, "Let's keep it professional, like you said." She nodded, but her eyes held a flicker of disappointment. They sat in silence, the fire casting shadows across her face. Then she spoke, her voice soft. "You ever think about what could have been, if we hadn't let go?" "Every day," he admitted, the words slipping out before he could stop them. Her gaze snapped to his, and the air thickened, heavy with unspoken want. He leaned closer, drawn by the pull of her warmth, her scent, the way her lips parted slightly. His hand brushed hers, and she didn't pull away. The fireplace glowed, painting her skin in hues of amber, and for a moment nothing else existed. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice a mix of longing and warning. He was about to close the distance when his phone buzzed, loud and jarring. He ignored it, but it buzzed again, insistent. With a curse, he grabbed it, seeing Isabelle's name on the screen. Reality crashed in like a cold wave. "I should take this," he said, standing abruptly. Maya nodded, Her expression shuddered. Yeah, you should. He stepped onto the balcony, the rain soaking his shirt as he answered. Hey, Isabelle. Darling, I'm on my way to your place, Isabelle said, her voice crisp. The auction was a bore, and I'd rather spend the night with you. Be there in 10. Ethan's stomach dropped. Now's not great, he started, but she cut him off. Nonsense. I have a key. See you soon. She hung up before he could argue. He turned back to the living room, his mind racing. Maya was still on the couch, sipping her wine, but the moment was gone. Everything okay? She asked, her tone neutral. Isabelle's coming over, he said, wincing at how it sounded. She didn't know you were here. Maya's face tightened, but she nodded. I'll head to the guest room. Don't want to make things weird. You don't have to, he started, but she was already standing, her movements brisk. It's fine, Ethan, she said, forcing a smile. Good night. She disappeared down the hall, and Ethan felt like he'd just lost something he couldn't name. Isabelle arrived minutes later, her emerald coat glistening with rain. She kissed Ethan's cheek, her perfume sharp and floral. You look tense, she said, shedding her coat to reveal a silk dress that hugged her frame. Rough day? Something like that, he said, his mind still on Maya. He poured her a glass of wine, trying to act normal, but his skin felt too tight, his thoughts a jumble. Isabelle sipped her wine, studying him over the rim. You've been distracted lately? Work? Yeah, he lied, adjusting his shirt collar. Big projects. She nodded, but her eyes were sharp, like she could sense the half-truth. They made small talk, her dress fitting, the auction, their wedding plans, but Ethan's heart wasn't in it. He kept picturing Maya in the guest room, probably sketching or reading, her presence a quiet rebellion against the life he was supposed to live. The next morning, Ethan woke early. The penthouse silent except for the hum of the city below. He found Maya in the kitchen, already dressed, brewing coffee. She'd swapped his sweatshirt for a fitted blouse, her duffel bag packed by the door. Morning, she said, her voice polite but distant. Thanks for letting me crash. My landlord says the pipe's fixed, so I'll be out of your hair. You don't have to rush, Ethan said. But before he could say more, the sound of heels clicked down the hall. Isabelle appeared, her hair perfect despite the early hour, a silk robe cinched at her waist. She froze, her eyes narrowing as she took in Maya, the coffee, the easy domesticity of the scene. I didn't realize we had company, she said, her voice cool but laced with something sharper. Ethan's stomach twisted. Isabelle, you remember Maya. Her apartment flooded last night, so I offered the guest room. Maya stepped forward, her expression calm, but her shoulders tense. Just a temporary thing, she said. I'm heading out now. Thanks again, Ethan. Isabelle's smile was tight, her gaze flicking between them. How thoughtful of you, Ethan. Always the hero. The air crackled with tension, and Ethan felt like he was standing on a fault line. Maya grabbed her bag, offering a quick nod. Nice seeing you, Isabelle. Take care. She left without looking back, the elevator doors closing with a soft ding. Ethan turned to Isabelle, bracing himself. Her composure held, but her eyes were stormy. An old friend, you said, she remarked, crossing her arms. Funny how she keeps popping up. It's not like that, Ethan said, but even he heard the weakness in his voice. Her place flooded. I was just helping out. Isabelle raised an eyebrow, her voice low and deliberate. I'm not an idiot, Ethan. I saw the way you looked at her last night at the gala. And now she's here, in our home, wearing your clothes. She paused, her gaze cutting. Is this why you've been so distant? Nothing happened, he said. The truth, but not the whole truth. I swear. She studied him, her silence more accusing than words. Finally, she said, I hope you're telling me the truth. because I won't be made a fool." She turned, her heels clicking as she headed back to the bedroom, leaving Ethan alone with his guilt. The rest of the day was a blur of meetings, but Ethan's mind was elsewhere. Lila noticed, cornering him in his office during a break. "Okay, Spill," she said, her hands on her hips. "You've got that kicked puppy look again. What's up?" Ethan sighed, rubbing his face. "Maya stayed at my place last night. Her apartment flooded. Isabelle showed up and it got messy." Lila whistled low. "Messy how? Like reality show messy? Or just awkward?" "Awkward," he said. "But Isabelle's not buying the just friends line, and honestly," he trailed off, staring at the skyline. "You're not buying it either." Lila finished, her voice softer now. "Look, boss, I'm not your therapist, but you're in deep with this Maya girl. You gotta figure out what you want before you hurt someone, or yourself." "I know," he said, but knowing didn't make it easier. He thought of Maya's words by the fireplace. "I won't be the reason you break a promise." She was trying to do the right thing, but what was right when his heart felt split in two? That evening he got a call from his mother, Eleanor, who'd sensed his unease during their last lunch. "You sound troubled," she said, her voice gentle over the phone. "Is it the wedding or something else?" Ethan hesitated, years of seeking his parents' approval holding him back. "Just work stress," he lied. "Everything's fine, Mom." Her silence told him she didn't believe him, but she didn't push. "You know you can talk to me, sweetheart. Whatever it is." "Thanks," he said. But as he hung up, he felt more alone than ever. His father, Richard, would lose it if he knew about Maya. Richard had always seen Isabelle as the perfect match, a way to cement the Carter legacy. "Don't screw this up, son," he'd said when Ethan proposed. "Harper's the real deal." Ethan poured a scotch, staring at the city lights. Then his phone lit up with a news alert. Carter Innovations to fund Eco-Village project with Global Impact Fund. The article mentioned Maya by name, praising her vision. But it was the last line that stopped him cold. "Sources say the project's facing funding hurdles. Will Carter step up or let it crash?" He set the glass down, his mind racing. The project was Maya's dream, her chance to make a mark in New York. If it failed, she'd be devastated, and he had the power to save it, or let it slip away. But stepping in meant diving deeper into her world, risking everything he'd built with Isabelle, his family, his reputation. He thought of Maya, her fire, her heart, the way she made him feel alive. Then he thought of Isabelle, her dignity, her trust. The choice loomed, heavy and inevitable, and Ethan knew he was running out of time to make it. The Brooklyn Bridge stretched across the East River, its cables glowing under the city's twilight. Ethan Carter walked beside Maya Thompson, their footsteps soft against the wooden walkway, the hum of traffic below mingling with the distant pulse of Manhattan. It was a Thursday evening, and they'd come here after a long day working on the Eco-Village project. A last-minute idea from Maya to clear their heads. But as the skyline sparkled and a cool breeze carried the scent of her vanilla perfume, Ethan knew his head was anything but clear. The past week had been a tightrope walk. After the tense morning when Isabelle caught Maya at his penthouse, Ethan had thrown himself into the project, convincing himself it was about business, not feelings. But every moment with Maya, the way she sketched designs with fierce focus, the way her laugh lit up her Dumbo office, chipped away at his resolve. The almost kiss in her office and the charged night by his fireplace haunted him, a reminder of what he wanted and what he couldn't have. Isabelle, meanwhile, had been distant, her texts curt, her smiles at events more polished than warm. Ethan felt the walls closing in, and tonight, under the bridge's lights, he was running out of places to hide. Maya leaned against the railing, her curls catching the glow of a street lamp. She wore a fitted jacket and jeans, her silver earrings, his earrings, glinting at her ears. "This is my favorite spot in the city," she said, her Brooklyn accent warm. "Always feels like you're part of something bigger, you know? Like the world's still full of possibilities." Ethan nodded, his hands in his pockets to keep from reaching for her. "I haven't been here in years," he admitted. "Forgot how it feels to just be." She glanced at him, her brown eyes searching. "You've been carrying a lot lately, haven't you?" The question caught him off guard, slicing through his defenses. He thought of Isabelle's cold accusation. "I saw the way you looked at her," and his father's voice, always pushing for the right life. He thought of the eco-village, Maya's dream, now teetering on the edge of collapse after a major investor balked at the risky vision. Most of all, he thought of Maya standing here, seeing him in a way no one else did. "Yeah," he said, his voice rough. "More than I realized." She turned to face him fully, the city lights framing her like a halo. "Talk to me, Ethan. What's going on in that head of yours?" He hesitated, the weight of the truth pressing against his chest. But her gaze, steady and unguarded, pulled it out of him. "I'm tired, Maya. Tired of living a life that looks perfect but feels empty. The penthouse, the company, the headlines. It's not enough. It's never been enough." He paused, his throat tight. "Not since I let you go." Her breath hitched, but she didn't look away. "Ethan." "I was a coward back then," he said, the words spilling out. "I let my dad, my ambition, the whole damn world talk me out of us. And I've spent 10 years trying to convince myself I made the right call. But seeing you again..." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You're the only thing that's ever felt real." The air between them crackled, heavy with a decade of longing. Maya's eyes shimmered, a mix of hope and fear. "You're engaged, Ethan," she said, but her voice trembled, less a barrier than a plea. "I know," he said, his hand reaching for hers. Her fingers were warm, steady, and when they curled around his, something inside him broke free. "But I can't keep pretending I'm someone I'm not." She didn't pull away, but her gaze held a warning. "This isn't just about us. There's Isabelle, your family, your whole world. You sure you're ready to burn it all down?" He wasn't sure, but standing here, with her hand in his, the city alive around them, he felt more certain than he had in years. "I'm ready to try," he said. They leaned in, drawn by a force stronger than reason. Her lips met his, soft and fierce, a kiss that tasted of memory and promise. The world fell away, the bridge, the city, the weight of his choices. Her hand slid to his chest, his fingers tangled in her curls, and for those few seconds, they were whole again, the boy and girl who dreamed of changing the world together. The kiss deepened, a spark igniting into flame, and Ethan felt alive in a way he hadn't since MIT. When they pulled apart, breathless, Maya's eyes were wide, her voice shaky. "What are we doing, Ethan?" "I don't know," he admitted, his forehead resting against hers. "But I know I can't lose you again." She stepped back, her hand still in his, but her expression was guarded. "This is big, Ethan. Bigger than a kiss. You need to figure out what you want, not just for me, but for you." He nodded, his heart pounding. "I will. I promise." They walked back to Manhattan in silence, the city's pulse matching the chaos in his chest. When they parted at her subway stop, Maya squeezed his hand. "Be sure, Ethan," she said, "because I can't do halfway." "I won't," he said, watching her disappear into the crowd, her words echoing like a challenge. The next morning, Ethan sat in his office, the eco-village proposals spread across his desk. The project was bleeding money, and his board was pushing to pull funding. "It's a feel-good idea, Carter, but it's not profitable," one director had said. Ethan knew they were right by the numbers. But every time he looked at Maya's sketches, community gardens, solar-powered homes, he saw her passion, her heart. Letting it fail wasn't an option. Lila Morales burst in, her tablet glowing with alerts. "Boss, you see this?" She held up a news article. Carter Innovations doubles down on risky eco-village project. Twitter's going nuts. Half the internet thinks you're a visionary. The other half thinks you're throwing cash into a black hole. Ethan rubbed his temples. "Let me guess. My dad's in the second camp?" "Oh, yeah," Lila said, scrolling. "He called twice this morning. Left a voicemail about responsibility and legacy. You want me to play it?" "Hard pass," Ethan said, but his stomach churned. Richard Carter had built his own empire from nothing, and he expected Ethan to do the same, without distractions like idealistic projects or worse, Maya. Lila perched on the desk, her dark eyes narrowing. "Level with me, Ethan. This project's got Maya written all over it. You're not just saving her dream. You're chasing her, aren't you?" Ethan leaned back, exhaling. "Is it that obvious?" "To me? Yeah," she said, smirking. "To Isabelle? Probably. You gotta be straight with her, man. Stringing her along ain't fair." "I know," he said, the guilt twisting like a knife. Lila was right. He couldn't keep living in two worlds. That night, Ethan returned to his penthouse, the silence louder than ever. Isabelle was waiting, perched on the couch, a glass of wine in her hand. Her blonde hair was swept into a low bun, her silk blouse impeccable, but her eyes were stormy. "We need to talk," she said, her voice calm but cutting. Ethan's heart sank. He set his keys down, bracing himself. "Okay." She stood, crossing her arms. "I've been patient, Ethan. The late nights, the distracted looks, the way you light up when Maya's name comes up. I thought it was just a phase, some nostalgic fling, but it's more than that, isn't it?" He opened his mouth to deny it, but the lie wouldn't come. Not anymore. "Isabelle," he said, his voice steady but heavy, "I've been trying to be the man you deserve, the man everyone expects me to be, but I'm not that guy. Not anymore." Her gaze sharpened, but her voice stayed even. "Do you love her?" The question stripped him bare, no room for half-truths. He thought of Maya, her fire, her heart, the way she made him want to be better. He thought of the bridge, their kiss, the truth he couldn't outrun. "I never stopped loving her," he said, the words both painful and freeing. "I've been trying to build a life that looks right, but it's not real. You deserve someone who loves you completely, Isabelle. I can't be that person." Her eyes glistened, but she held her composure, a queen in defeat. She slipped the engagement ring off her finger, setting it on the coffee table with a soft click. "I always knew there was a part of you I couldn't reach," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought it was just how you were built. Now I see. You gave that part to her a long time ago." Ethan's throat tightened. "I'm sorry," he said, meaning it. "You didn't deserve this." She straightened, her dignity unshaken. "No, I didn't, but I'll be fine." She picked up her purse, pausing at the door. "I hope she's worth it, Ethan, for your sake." The door closed behind her, and the penthouse felt cavernous, empty despite its luxury. Ethan sank onto the couch, staring at the ring, a symbol of a life he'd just dismantled. His phone buzzed with a Twitter notification. #Carter crash trending. Billionaire Ethan Carter dumps fiancée Isabelle Harper for mystery woman. The post was from a gossip account, complete with a blurry photo of him and Maya on the bridge. The comments were brutal. "Who's this chick breaking up NYC's power couple? Carter's throwing away his rep for some nobody?" A few mentioned Maya's name, some with praise for her work, others with venom that made Ethan's blood boil. He turned off the phone, his mind racing. The world was watching, judging, and Maya would be caught in the crossfire. He thought of her in Brooklyn, probably sketching or sipping tea, unaware of the storm brewing online. The thought of her facing that hate, because of him, made him sick. But beneath the guilt, a strange lightness took root. For the first time in years, he was choosing himself, choosing truth. And that truth led to Maya. The next morning, Ethan drove to Maya's office in Dumbo, the city waking up around him. The loft was buzzing with her team, but Maya was alone in her corner, hunched over a blueprint. She looked up as he entered, her expression wary. "Ethan, what's going on?" He didn't preamble. "I ended it with Isabelle," he said, his voice firm. "Not just because of you, but because it wasn't real. I've been living for everyone else. My dad, the board, the headlines. I'm done with that." Maya's eyes widened, a mix of shock and caution. "Ethan, that's huge. Are you sure?" "I've never been surer," he said, stepping closer. "I don't know what this means for us, Maya. I know it's complicated, and I know I hurt you before. But I want a chance, a real one, to build something with you. Something true." She stood, crossing her arms, her gaze piercing. "What do you want, Ethan?" "Not 10 years ago, not in some fantasy. Right now." "You," he said, the word raw and certain. "Not to go back, but to start something new. I'm not the kid who let you go anymore. I want to be the man who stays." Her expression softened, but doubt lingered. "This isn't a movie, Ethan. Our worlds are different. Your life, boardrooms, galas, all that noise. It's not mine. And now, with you and Isabelle." She gestured vaguely, like the weight of it was too much. "People are talking, aren't they?" He nodded, not hiding it. "Yeah, Twitter's a mess, but I don't care about them. I care about you." She exhaled, running a hand through her curls. "I need time, Ethan. This is a lot. I want to believe you, but I've built my life on my own terms. I can't just jump." "I'm not asking you to," he said, his voice gentle. "I'll wait, as long as it takes." She studied him, her eyes searching for the truth. Finally she nodded, a small gesture but heavy with possibility. "Okay," she said, "but we take it slow. No rushing, no drama. Just us, figuring it out." "Deal," he said, a smile breaking through. For the first time in weeks, he felt like he could breathe. As he left her office, the city buzzing below, Ethan knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The gossip, his father's wrath, the project's uncertainty, they loomed like storm clouds. But for the first time, he was walking towards something real, something worth fighting for. And that something was Maya. The Dumbo loft was a mess of blueprints, coffee cups, and tension. Ethan Carter stood at the whiteboard, scribbling numbers next to Maya Thompson's eco-village design, his sleeves rolled up, his jaw tight. Across the table, Maya leaned over a laptop, her curls tied back, her brow furrowed as she scanned budget reports. The room buzzed with the quiet urgency of her team, but the real storm was between them. Their joint project, a tech-powered eco-village in upstate New York, was on the brink of collapse. A major investor had pulled out, spooked by the project's unproven model, and the clock was ticking to find new funding. It had been a week since Ethan ended his engagement to Isabelle Harper, a decision that sent shockwaves through New York's elite. Twitter was a battlefield, with hashtags like #CarterCrash and #NYCS scandal trending. Gossip blogs churned out headlines. Billionaire ditches, fiancé for Brooklyn architect, and who is Maya Thompson? Some praised Maya's work, but others were vicious, with comments laced with racism and scorn. Carter's trading a queen for a nobody? She's just after his money. Ethan had shut off notifications, but the noise seeped through, a constant reminder of the cost of his choice. Maya, for her part, was holding it together, but Ethan could see the strain. She'd agreed to take things slow, to figure it out after their kiss on the Brooklyn Bridge, but the world wasn't giving them space to breathe. Every meeting, every shared glance, carried the weight of what they'd started and what they stood to lose. "We're short $5 million, Maya said, her voice steady but edged with frustration. She pushed the laptop away, rubbing her temples. "Without that, we can't break ground. The whole thing's dead." Ethan erased a figure on the whiteboard, his marker squeaking. "I can cover it," he said. "Carter Innovations has the cash. I'll make it happen." Maya's eyes snapped to his, sharp and wary. "No, Ethan. This isn't your personal piggy bank. The fund has to stand on its own. If you keep bailing us out, it's not sustainable. It's charity." "It's not charity," he shot back, turning to face her. "It's an investment in you, in the vision. You think I'd put my name on something I don't believe in?" She stood, crossing her arms, her silver earrings catching the light. "This isn't about belief. It's about reality. Investors are bailing because they think it's too risky, too feel-good. If we don't prove them wrong with hard numbers, it's over." "Then let's find new investors," Ethan said, his voice rising. "I've got contacts, VCs, philanthropists. We can pitch them next week." Maya shook her head, her jaw tight. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't a boardroom game, Ethan. This is my life's work. I've seen projects like this die before. In Rwanda, in Malaysia, because people with money thought they could just throw cash at it and walk away. I won't let that happen here." The room went quiet, her team glancing over, sensing the tension. Ethan felt a sting, like she'd slapped him. "I'm not walking away," he said, his voice low. "I'm all in, Maya. Why can't you see that?" "Because I've heard it before," she snapped, her eyes blazing. 10 years ago, you said you'd fight for us, and then you didn't. You chose your dad, your startup, your plan, and now you're here, acting like money fixes everything. But it doesn't fix trust." The words hit like a punch, dredging up the past he'd tried to bury. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "I'm not that guy anymore, Maya. I ended things with Isabelle. I'm standing here fighting for this, for you. What more do you want?" She held his gaze, her chest rising and falling, but didn't answer. The silence was deafening, a chasm neither could cross. Finally, she turned back to the laptop, her voice flat. "Let's just finish the numbers. We've got a deadline." They worked in strained silence, the spark between them buried under frustration. When the team left for the night, Ethan lingered, watching Maya pack her bag. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice soft. "I didn't mean to push. I want this to work." She sighed, slinging her bag over her shoulder. "I know you do, but this project, this life, it's bigger than us. I need to know you're in it for the right reasons." "I am," he said. But as she walked out, her footsteps echoing in the loft, he wasn't sure she believed him. The next day, Ethan's world got louder. His father, Richard Carter, left a voicemail that cut like glass. "You're throwing away everything I built for you, Ethan. Harper was your ticket to the top, and now you're chasing some pipe dream with a woman who doesn't fit. Call me when you come to your senses." Ethan deleted it, his hands shaking. Richard had always seen Maya as a distraction, a threat to the Carter legacy. Now, with the engagement off and the eco-village faltering, his father's disapproval was a storm cloud over everything. Twitter wasn't helping. The gossip had escalated, with a viral thread dissecting Maya's past. She's got no business in Carter's world. Brooklyn girl trying to play in the big leagues. A few defended her, citing her awards and impact, but the hate drowned them out. Ethan wanted to shield her, to fire back, but Lila Morales, his assistant, stopped him. "Don't engage, boss," she said, her Bronx accent sharp as she scrolled through her tablet. "You'll just pour gas on the fire. Let Maya handle her own fight." "She shouldn't have to," Ethan said, pacing his office. "This is my fault. I dragged her into this mess." Lila raised an eyebrow, setting her tablet down. "You didn't drag her anywhere. She's a grown woman, making her own choices, but if you want to help, stop trying to play hero and start listening to her. She's not Isabelle. She doesn't need you to fix her life." Ethan stopped pacing, Lila's words sinking in. She was right. Maya had built her world without him, brick by brick, through failures and triumphs he'd never understand. If he wanted to be part of it, he had to earn her trust, not demand it. That evening, he went to a community event in Brooklyn, one Maya had mentioned, a fundraiser for local artists held in a warehouse turned gallery. The space was alive with color. Murals splashed across the walls, jazz drifting from a live band. Maya was there, in a flowy dress that hugged her curves, laughing with a group of friends. Ethan spotted Jaden Brooks, her colleague and friend, standing close, his hand on her arm. Jaden was tall, with a quiet intensity, and Ethan felt a pang of jealousy, knowing Jaden had been there for Maya in ways he hadn't. Jaden caught his eye, his expression cool. He walked over, his voice low. "Carter, didn't expect to see you here." "Came to support the cause," Ethan said, keeping his tone even, "and to see Maya." Jaden's jaw tightened. "She's been through enough without you stirring up more drama. You broke her heart once. You really think you deserve another shot?" The words stung, but Ethan didn't flinch. "I know I messed up, but I'm not here to hurt her. I'm here to stay." Jaden studied him, then nodded, a grudging respect in his eyes. "Prove it, but don't expect her to make it easy." Maya joined them, her smile fading as she sensed the tension. "Everything okay?" she asked, glancing between them. "All good," Jaden said, squeezing her shoulder before walking away. Ethan felt the weight of his gaze, a challenge to step up or step out. Maya turned to Ethan, her expression guarded. "What's this about, Ethan? You don't just show up to places like this." "I wanted to see your world," he said, his voice earnest. "Not the blueprints or the pitches. You. The stuff that matters to you." Her eyes softened, but doubt lingered. "It's not that simple. This..." She gestured to the crowd, the art, the music. "It's who I am. And your world, with the penthouses and the power plays. I don't know if I fit there." "You don't have to," he said, stepping closer. "I'll meet you here, wherever you are." She didn't answer, but her gaze held his, searching for the truth. The band struck up a new song, a slow jazz number, and couples began to sway. Ethan offered his hand, a half smile tugging at his lips. "Dance with me?" She hesitated, then took his hand, her touch warm and steady. They moved together, not quite dancing, but swaying, the music wrapping around them. Her head rested against his chest, and for a moment, the world's noise faded. Ethan felt her heartbeat, steady and real, and knew he'd fight for this. For her, no matter what. But the fight got harder. 2 days later, the eco-village hit another wall. A second investor backed out, citing market volatility, but hinting at Ethan's personal instability. The board at Carter Innovations was livid, scheduling an emergency meeting to reassess his leadership. Lila forwarded him a string of emails, each more panicked than the last. "They're circling, boss," she said, her voice grim. "You've got to play this smart, or they'll eat you alive." Ethan barely slept, his mind torn between the project and Maya. He went to her apartment, a cozy walk-up in Bed-Stuy, hoping to talk, She answered the door in sweats, her face drawn. "Bad timing," she said, letting him in. "I just got off a call with the fund. We're out of options." "We'll find a way," Ethan said, but his voice lacked conviction. The apartment smelled like coffee and incense, a stark contrast to his sterile penthouse. Photos lined the walls, her family, her projects, a shot of her in Rwanda, smiling with a group of kids. It was a life built on purpose, and he felt like an intruder. Maya sank onto the couch, her hands clasped. "I'm leaving for Nairobi tomorrow," she said, her voice quiet. "There's a conference on sustainable development. I need to network, find new partners. Maybe I can save this." Ethan's heart sank. "How long?" "A week, maybe 2, she said, avoiding his eyes. "But it's not just the project, Ethan. I need space to think about us, about everything." "Me?" The words hit like a blow, but he nodded, swallowing the panic. "I get it. You need to do what's right for you." She looked at him, her eyes glistening. "I want this. Us. But I'm scared. I've been on my own for so long, and now I don't know if I can trust you not to break me again." "I won't," he said, his voice fierce. "I'm not going anywhere, Maya. I'll be here when you get back." She nodded, but her silence felt like a wall. As he left, the city blurring around him, Ethan felt the ground shifting. Maya was slipping away, and with her, the dream they'd started to build. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother, Eleanor. "Your father's furious, but I'm worried about you. Call me." He ignored it, his focus narrowing to one truth. He had to prove to Maya he was worth the risk, not with words or money, but with action. The board meeting loomed, a showdown Ethan couldn't avoid. He spent the night in his office, drafting a new pitch for the eco-village, one that balanced Maya's vision with hard data. Lila found him at dawn, bleary-eyed but determined. "You look like hell," she said, handing him a coffee. "But this pitch? It's fire. You might just pull this off." "I have to," he said, his voice raw. "For her." Lila smiled, a rare softness in her eyes. "Then go get him, boss. Show him what you're made of." As he prepared for the meeting, Ethan thought of Maya, boarding a plane to Nairobi, carrying her dreams and doubts. The board, his father, the gossip. They were noise. Maya was the signal, the one truth he couldn't ignore. He'd lost her once. Let fear win. This time he'd fight, even if it meant losing everything else. The Nairobi sky was a canvas of stars, vast and unyielding, stretching over the conference center, where the global summit on sustainable development was in full swing. Ethan Carter stood at the edge of the venue, his suit rumpled from the 15-hour flight, his heart pounding with a mix of nerves and resolve. He'd landed in Kenya just hours ago, driven by a single purpose: to find Maya Thompson and prove he was all in. For her, for their project, for the life they could build together. The eco-village was on life support. His board was ready to oust him, and his father's silence was deafening. But none of that mattered, not if he could reach her. Inside, the summit buzzed with energy. Architects, policymakers, activists from across the globe sharing ideas under sleek white tents. Ethan scanned the crowd, his eyes catching on Maya's silhouette near a panel stage. She was speaking, her voice steady and passionate, her curls loose under the stage lights. She wore a tailored blazer, and those silver earrings, his earrings, a quiet tether to their past. "Sustainability isn't just about buildings," she said, her Brooklyn accent cutting through the room. "It's about people, about giving communities the tools to dream." The audience leaned in, captivated, and Ethan felt a surge of pride. This was Maya, fierce, brilliant, unstoppable. He'd spent the last week in a frenzy, fighting to save the eco-village. The board meeting at Carter Innovations had been a bloodbath, with directors slamming his reckless spending and personal drama. Ethan had laid it all on the line, presenting a revised pitch that blended Maya's vision with hard data, projections showing long-term impact, not just profit. Lila Morales had backed him up, her tablet flashing charts like a shield. "This isn't a gamble," Ethan had told them, his voice steel. "It's the future." Miraculously, one director flipped, then another, and the board agreed to keep funding. For now. But they needed more. A new investor to seal the deal. That's why he was here, in Nairobi, with a Hail Mary plan and a heart full of hope. He'd tracked down a Kenyan philanthropist, Amina Okoye, whose foundation aligned with Maya's work. Ethan had spent hours crafting a pitch, not for Carter Innovations, but for Maya's dream. If he could convince Amina, the eco-village would survive. If he could convince Maya, their love might too. The panel ended, and Maya stepped off the stage. Greeting colleagues with her trademark warmth, Ethan moved toward her, his pulse racing. She spotted him, her eyes widening in shock. "Ethan?" she said, her voice a mix of disbelief and caution. "What are you doing here?" "I came for you," he said, his voice low but firm. "And for the project. I've got a pitch for Amina Okoye. If she's in, we're fully funded." Maya's jaw tightened, her arms crossing. "You flew halfway across the world to pitch an investor? Ethan, I told you I needed space." "I know," he said, stepping closer, the crowd fading around them. "And I'm giving you that. But I couldn't let this fail. Not your dream, not us. I'm here to fight for both." Her eyes searched his, a storm of emotions flickering, doubt, hope, fear. "This better be good, Carter," she said finally, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Because I'm not in the mood for half measures." He grinned, relief flooding him. "No half measures. Promise." The pitch was set for the next morning in a sunlit conference room overlooking Nairobi's skyline. Amina Okoye was a formidable woman, her presence commanding, her questions sharp. Ethan and Maya presented together, a seamless team. Maya laid out the vision: homes powered by solar grids, community spaces fostering local art, training programs for youth. Ethan backed it with data, cost breakdowns, scalability, tech integrations from Carter Innovations. Their chemistry was electric, her passion igniting his pragmatism, his confidence grounding her dreams. When Maya sketched a virtual tour on her tablet, her hands moving with purpose, Ethan caught Amina's nod of approval. "You're a compelling duo," Amina said, leaning back in her chair. "But this is ambitious. Why should I trust you'll deliver?" Maya answered first, her voice steady. "Because I've built projects like this before, in places tougher than upstate New York. I've seen what happens when communities are given a chance to thrive. This isn't just a project, it's a promise." Ethan added, "And we've got the tech and the track record to make it real. Carter Innovations isn't here for headlines, we're here for impact." Amina studied them, her gaze piercing. Then she smiled. "I'm in. $5 million with a clause for oversight. Don't let me down." Maya's face lit up, a rare unguarded joy, and Ethan felt his chest swell. As they shook hands with Amina, their eyes met. A silent celebration. They'd done it, saved the eco-village, defied the odds. But the real test was still ahead. That evening, Maya invited Ethan to a village outside Nairobi, one of her early projects, a cluster of solar-powered homes surrounded by vegetable gardens. The air was warm, alive with crickets and the laughter of kids playing soccer. Maya walked him through the streets, her pride evident in every step. "This is why I do it," she said, gesturing to a family eating dinner under a string of lights. "Not for awards, but for them." Ethan watched her, the starlight catching her curls, her smile brighter than any city skyline. "You're incredible," he said, his voice soft. "You always have been." She turned to him, her expression softening but cautious. "Why are you really here, Ethan? Not just for the project. Tell me." He took a breath, the words he'd rehearsed on the flight spilling out. "I'm here because I love you, Maya. I loved you 10 years ago, and I love you now. I was too scared to fight for us then, but I'm not anymore. I want a life with you. Not the one I was supposed to have, but the one that feels right. Whatever that looks like, wherever it takes us." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. "I'm scared, Ethan. I've built my world on my own and letting you in. It's a risk. What if we crash again?" "Then we crash together," he said, taking her hand. "But I'd rather fall with you than stand alone in a penthouse that's never felt like home." She laughed, a soft, shaky sound, and stepped closer. "You're making it really hard to say no, Carter." "Then don't," he said, his voice a whisper. Under the African sky, they kissed, a slow, deliberate connection that felt like a vow. Her lips were warm, her hand steady on his chest, and Ethan felt the world right itself. This wasn't the desperate spark of the Brooklyn Bridge. It was deeper, a promise forged through pain and choice. When they pulled apart, her forehead rested against his, her breath mingling with his. "I love you too," she whispered. "But we're doing this my way. Slow, real, no shortcuts." "Deal," he said, grinning, his heart fuller than it had ever been. 6 months later, Brooklyn's waterfront glowed under a September sunset, the skyline a backdrop to the grand opening of the Thompson Carter Innovation Center. The eco-village was still under construction upstate, but this Brooklyn hub, a sleek, solar-powered building designed by Maya, was the heart of their mission. It offered tech and design training for local youth with murals inspired by jazz and community gardens blooming out front. The ribbon cutting drew a crowd. Politicians, activists, even a few Carter Innovations board members who'd come around. Ethan stood beside Maya, his suit swapped for a casual blazer, her hand in his. She wore a vibrant dress that echoed her heritage, her curls free and glowing. They'd spent the last 6 months building not just the project, but each other, dating properly, learning the people they'd become. There were fights over budgets, priorities, their different worlds, but every clash pushed them to grow. With Maya, even the disagreements felt meaningful, a contrast to the smooth, shallow ease of his life with Isabelle. The crowd cheered as Maya cut the ribbon, her smile radiant. "This is for Brooklyn," she said into the mic, her voice strong. "For every kid who's been told their dreams are too big. We're here to prove them wrong." Ethan watched, his chest swelling with pride. Later, as the event wound down, they slipped away to a quiet corner, the city humming around them. "We did it," he said, pulling her close. "You did it." "We," she corrected, her eyes twinkling. "You're stuck with me now, Carter." "Good," he said, kissing her forehead. "No place I'd rather be." Their families had come around, slowly. Eleanor, Ethan's mother, had become Maya's biggest fan, even painting a mural for the center. "I've never seen you so alive," she'd told Ethan at a family dinner, her eyes misty. Richard, his father, was tougher, but Maya's success and the center's positive press had softened him. "She's got grit," he'd grudged at a recent lunch, a rare nod of respect. The Twitter storm had faded, replaced by stories of the center's impact. Thompson Carter was now a badge of pride, with posts celebrating Maya's vision and Ethan's pivot to purpose-driven tech. There were still haters. There always would be. But they were background noise, drowned out by the life Ethan and Maya were building. A week later, they sat on a bench in Central Park, the same spot where they'd studied as MIT undergrads, sneaking kisses between flashcards. Autumn leaves drifted around them, the air crisp with possibility. Maya rested her head on Ethan's shoulder, her hand tracing patterns on his palm. "What's next?" she asked, her voice soft. "More projects. World domination?" He laughed, the sound free and unguarded. "Maybe a vacation first. Somewhere quiet, just us." "Sounds perfect," she said, tilting her face to his. They kissed, slow and easy, the park fading into a blur. Ethan felt a contentment no boardroom victory could match, not because Maya completed him, but because together they challenged each other to be their truest selves. He'd once thought success was wealth, status, a skyline he owned. Now he knew it was this. The courage to choose love over expectation, to build a life aligned with his heart. Maya wasn't his destination. She was his partner, his equal, the woman who made every risk worth taking. As the sun dipped below the trees, Ethan held her closer, knowing they'd face more challenges, more fights, more dreams. But they'd face them together, and that was enough. What did you think of Ethan and Maya's journey? Have you ever had to risk everything for love or a dream that felt true? Share your story in the comments and hit that subscribe button to catch more tales of courage and connection. Thanks for sticking with us. This one's from the heart.